Well, we're just about finished with the book of Genesis. We're at Genesis chapter 49 today. But just a quick recap of the previous chapters. Jacob and his entire family were relocated to the land of Goshen in Egypt per the request of Jacob's son Joseph and, of course, the approval of Pharaoh. They settled there, and Jacob was given another 17 years of life. As his time was drawing near, Joseph got word that his dad was not doing well, so he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. And Jacob proceeded to bless his grandsons through Joseph, but switched the blessing from the older to the younger. At least the greater blessing. The younger Ephraim received the older Manasseh's blessing. And as he's getting things in order for his passing, Jacob now calls the rest of his sons in. And this is what we read about in chapter 49. Let's look at the first two verses. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, "Gather around so I can tell you what will happen to you in days to come. Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to your father Israel." This was the moment that all of his sons had been waiting for some time now. And I'm sure they had been waiting since they knew their father was failing in health. It was time for them to receive their specific blessings from their father before he passes on from this life. It's impossible for us to know exactly what was going through their heads at the moment, but we can probably assume they waited in eager expectation of what their father would say about them and the blessings that he would bestow upon them. And needless to say, some were encouraged by their father's blessings and others not so much. And we actually begin with a not so much here in verses 3 and 4. "Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power, turbulent as the waters. You will no longer excel, for you went up onto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it." It seems the best days of Reuben were behind him. Even though he was strong and had some sort of honor and power, he was unstable. He would no longer excel. Even though he was the firstborn of Jacob, he had relinquished his firstborn blessing and rights when he committed a grave sin against his father. And we know what it was. Back in chapter 35 of Genesis, we learned that Reuben had slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah. His tribe would not be the tribe of leadership as it normally would for this very reason. We learn that the tribe of Reuben never does really play a significant role in the story of Israel. They are never really influential part of Israel's history. And this tribe sort of goes on into obscurity later in the life of this nation. Verses 5 through 7, again, couple of not so muches. "Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly. For they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they please. Cursed be their anger so fierce and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel." If we go back to chapter 34, we understand why Jacob could say such things about these two sons of his. They totally wiped out the males in the city of Shechem, following the indiscretions of the city leader's son attacking their sister Dinah. And needless to say, Jacob, or Israel, is critical of their behavior and their treachery in their dealings here. Jacob's curse upon them is partially fulfilled by the time Israel was about to enter in the promised land. Simeon seems to be the weakest of the tribes at this point, and Moses fails to bless the tribe of Simeon. Levi ends up receiving only 48 cities in the lands allotted to the other tribes. This essentially scatters and disperses this tribe, the tribe of Levi, throughout the land. Now, verses 8 through 12 says, Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub. O Judah, you return from the prey, my son. Like a lion he crouches and lies down, like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he comes to whom it belongs, and the obedience of the nations is his. He will tether his donkey to a vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Judah's blessing here far surpasses the others. It's much more eloquent, and, well, it's a true blessing. It seems Judah receives the blessing that really Reuben should have gotten as the firstborn. Judah will become the kingly tribe for this future nation. The scepter is a symbol that points to the throne, to authority over the others. The latter verses here can certainly be applied to the Messiah, Jesus. He would ride triumphantly in the city of Jerusalem on the back of a donkey's colt, and he has now become the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. His throne is eternal. His rule is eternal, and there will be never be a challenge to his rule. And guess what tribe Jesus descended from? Of course, the line of David, but more importantly for our study today, through the line of Judah. Genesis 49:13 says, Zebulun will live by the seashore and become a haven for ships. His border will extend toward Sidon. When we read in the book of Joshua, chapter 19, verses 10 through 16, we get a picture of this tribe's territory, but there's a problem. They're not by the sea. They were sandwiched between Naphtali and Asher, separated by a tribe from the Mediterranean Sea as well as the Sea of Galilee. Their land certainly isn't on the seashore, but well upon dry land. Some believe that perhaps Jacob was being a little sarcastic here, knowing that the tribe would never be there, but some say that it wasn't that they lived on the seashore but worked there. What we do know is the main trade route from the Mediterranean and from the Sea of Galilee went right through Zebulun. So they would certainly reap some benefits from both. Verses 14 and 15 says, Issachar is a raw-boned donkey lying down between two saddlebags. When he sees how good is his resting place and how pleasant is his land, he will bend his shoulder to the burden and submit to forced labor. The tribe of Issachar is likened to a stout donkey. As the land was allotted in the promised land, Issachar is given a great area that would produce abundance of crops, abundance of food. This tribe then becomes farmers and the like. They saw the great land they had been given, and they went to work. They also became heroic and brave soldiers. Even during the time of David, the tribe of Issachar is providing able-bodied troops to the royal army. And it seems that both Zebulun and Issachar become quite industrious as a people. Verses 16 through 18. Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a serpent on by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward. I look for your deliverance, O Lord. Jacob declares that Dan will be a judge for his people. So it seems that the tribe of Dan would occupy some sort of judicial position in the future. And sometime later, Samson was a Danite and becomes a judge for the people. Perhaps this is a fulfillment of Jacob's blessing, or at least a partial fulfillment. John J. Davis said in his commentary of Genesis, said of Dan, while this tribe never became great in numbers, it did become very influential in Israel. Yet they lacked moral commitment and spiritual stability. And it's interesting to note that Dan is the only tribe not mentioned in Revelation chapter 7. So one has to wonder why. But anyway, verse 19 says, Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at their heels. Jacob has very little to say about this son, as well as a couple to follow, but it's really a bad news, good news blessing. He would be constantly attacked by raiders, and then he would attack them, apparently, as they fled. It kind of reminds me of the little ankle biter dogs. You know what I'm talking about. They're a lot more brave when someone's walking away or moving away from him. But whatever the case, this tribe would eventually settle on the east side of the Jordan River, and that's important because it was exposed there on its eastern border to invading armies. They would be in constant alert for invaders. Verse 20, Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. So the tribe of Asher here would eventually inhabit a very fertile area. This was fulfilled as they settled in the area east of the Mediterranean Sea in the northwestern corner of the Promised Land. This included the Galilean hill country. Galilee would also become an important part as we get into the New Testament. Some believe that it was perhaps even the tribe of Asher that produced the wheat and the oil that Solomon gave to the king Hiram in 1 Kings 5:11, and this is certainly possible. Verse 21, Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Little is known about the future of this tribe. Barak from Judges chapter 4 verse 6 apparently came from this tribe. And Judges 5:18, Zebulun and Naphtali were recognized as heroes in the great conflict with Sisera, the Canaanite general. Judges 5:18 says, the people of Zebulun risked their very lives, so did Naphtali on the heights of the field. So they apparently were successful, at least at that moment, as soldiers, but we know little about their future. Now, verses 22 through 26. Joseph is a fruitful vine near a spring, whose branches climb over a wall. With bitterness, archers attacked him. They shot at him with hostility. But his bow remained steady. His strong arms stayed limber, because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, because of your father's God, who helps you, because of the Almighty, who blesses you with blessings of the heavens above, blessings of the deep that lies below, blessings of the breast and womb. Your father's blessings are greater than the blessings of the ancient mountains, than the bounty of the age-old hills. Let all these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. Now we get to a special blessing for sure. Jacob gives to his son Joseph. One can feel the love that he had for this special son. The son that had been lost, and then he had gotten back again. Even though the son was mistreated by his brothers and had a past that was full of troubles and imprisonment and persecution, he has come to the great position in Egypt, and God had poured out his blessings upon him in Egypt. This man had a depth of character not shared by his brothers, by his siblings. Jacob predicted growth and prosperity for Joseph. Even though he might be attacked, they will ultimately triumph and succeed. They would continue to grow as a tribe. And as we mentioned before, by the time of the Exodus, the tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim, Joseph's sons, had proven very, very fruitful. Verse 27 says, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, in the evening he divides the plunder. Jacob more than likely refers to the tribe of Benjamin in his warlike character in this prediction. In the future, the Benjaminites will distinguish themselves as great warriors with bows and slings. The judge Ehud was from this tribe. And if you remember, he was the one who took care of King Eglon of Moab by hiding a short sword in his clothes. And if you remember, Ehud was left-handed, so he stabbed the king, the obese king, in private. King Saul was likewise from this tribe, and obviously his son Jonathan would be as well. And as we look into the New Testament, we find that even the Apostle Paul was from the tribe of Benjamin. So they play important roles in not only the history of Israel, but also the early church. Genesis 49 verses 28 through 33 says, All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to him. Then he gave them these instructions, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah, near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought as a burial place from Ephron the Hittite, along with the field. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were bought from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. With his final words, he not only gives appropriate blessings and, kind of curses to some of his sons, Jacob gives directions on his burial. He was to be buried in the cave in the field of Machpelah that Abraham had bought from the Hittite man Ephron. This is where Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, and Leah were all buried. So Jacob apparently died peacefully, and he had been given 147 years of life. Even though the story of Jacob had taken many turns, he dies knowing he has been blessed by the Lord and that his sons would become a great nation made up of 12 tribes. He is so sure in the Lord's promises that he is buried like his forefathers in the promised land. And again, it wouldn't be theirs for another 400 years. And yet Jacob took God his word. May we do the same. May we place our faith in the Lord's word and his commands. May God bless you and keep you and give you peace till we can meet again here and study God's word.